Hello, James. It is lovely to see you. Thank you for coming to talk to us.
Hello, thanks for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here.
James, can you tell us, please, about your sight?
Yes, of course. I was born with LCA, that's Leber's congenital amaurosis. I'm registered blind, but with a little bit of residual vision. So just to give that some practical context, in terms of the concert, I will probably be able to see the conductor, and I will probably be able to see her waving her arms, but not be able to interpret that very accurately. I may be able to see a little bit of the church where we're playing, so certainly the windows and the light coming through the windows, but not very much detail, probably. I'll probably be able to see some people in the audience, so I'll be able to notice that there are people there, but not recognise them by their faces. I definitely won't be able to see any sheet music, so everything I play from memory.
When did you start getting interested in music? And do your parents play, or your siblings?
Well, my parents don't play music themselves, but they are very interested in music and were very supportive as we were growing up. My sister is 7 years older than me, and by the time I was born, she was already playing the flute and the piano to quite a reasonable standard. And I remember lying in bed listening to her playing the piano and the flute downstairs and thinking, I'd love to do that one day. I came to the recorder aged 7, and like most people, I started in the school lunchtime recorder group. And actually for the first year or so, I was pretty hopeless and made very slow progress. Our teacher used to write out the notes we were to play in very thick black felt tip on pieces of paper, and even at that stage I had to get so close to read it that I would come home with my left cheek smudged in black ink, and that's how my parents knew that I'd been to recorder club.
When did you start to play?
Well, aged 9, I was lucky enough to hear two of the world's greatest recorder players, both performing very close to where we lived in Devon, Michaela Petrie and Piers Adams. And I remember the concerts to this day, and just that thrill of hearing what the recorder could do and the excitement of wondering, how on earth they were playing what they were playing. And I just fell in love with the music that I heard. And from that day on, I would devour as much of the repertoire as I could on cassette in those days. I would scour the Radio Times to find any performances involving recorders, and I found a wonderful teacher who lived very close to us at the time and really never looked back from that point.
Do you play any other instruments beside the recorder, James?
Yes, I have played other instruments. I took up the clarinet aged 9 and played that for many years in a local youth orchestra in Worcester where I went to school, and really thoroughly enjoyed that, playing lots of symphonic repertoire, playing in lots of Last Night of the Proms concerts and so on. And my crowning glory as a clarinetist, and in fact almost as a musician as a whole, was playing Mozart's clarinet concerto on a basset clarinet. That was wonderful fun and just one of my life's ambitions realised. But that apart, I've dedicated myself to the recorder pretty much exclusively, out of a real lack of talent for any other instrument whatsoever.
Can you describe and demonstrate some of the different sounds of the various recorders that you play? It would be lovely to hear all how they are different.
Absolutely. The recorder comes in many different sizes and shapes and designs, and the recorder has been around for a very long time. The earliest known surviving example is from around 1381, but it's almost certain that there were recorders in existence long before that. In fact, I have a copy of that recorder here. It's a recorder in C, so like a descant recorder that we might play in school. It looks ever so slightly different in that it has no beak at the end. The mouthpiece is flat, and at the other end it's slightly rounded, a bit like a drum beater. And it's possible that people used them to play the recorder and beat a drum with as well. It sounds a bit more mellow than the modern descant recorder. It sounds a little bit like this. So that's the medieval recorder. The recorder has remained largely unaltered, actually, since that time. There are still 7 finger holes and a thumb hole, and a fippled mouthpiece, like a beak mouthpiece to blow into. Of the instruments that are in use today, the smallest is the sopranino recorder, and this is about the length of my arm from my elbow to my wrist. And the sopranino is often used to depict birdsong and insects in pieces of music, and is used for effect. It sounds a bit like this. Well, next I have the treble recorder, and this is the instrument I shall be using in the concert on the 15th of June. The treble recorder has a very bright top range and a more mellow middle range, so it blends beautifully with an orchestra, and it's full of character. It sounds a bit like this. So it's very bright, very punchy, but also very mellow, a more vocal quality to it. Well, next I have the bass recorder, and here you will really notice a difference. This is a much bigger instrument, it's a much softer tone, a much woodier sound, mellow sound, much more softly spoken, generally speaking. And for that reason, it doesn't have a huge amount of repertoire with orchestras, because it just wouldn't be heard as easily. But there are a number of pieces, very effective pieces for bass recorder solo. It sounds a bit like this. It's actually one of my favourite recorders to play. It's really characterful, and especially with a microphone, it can produce some really wonderful effects. Well, I said that the recorder hasn't changed since the Middle Ages. That's not quite true. There are, in fact, some very modern designs of recorder which make some quite substantial changes, and one such is the Eagle recorder, which I have here, and in fact I'll be using the Eagle in the concert on June the 15th.
It'd be great if you could describe the instrument for us, for our listeners, please, James.
Yes, indeed. So for your listeners and readers, it looks like a recorder. It's made of African blackwood, grenadilla wood. It's slightly chunkier than a regular treble recorder, and it has a much wider windway. And the reason for this is that it allows me to put much more air into the instrument, rather like a flute or a clarinet, and get a much greater contrast of dynamics, most importantly much louder, so it penetrates above the sound of the string orchestra and allows the recorder to be heard at all times. The other most striking difference is that it has 4 keys on the instrument, and these facilitate some additional fingerings so that I can create some different timbres, different colours and sonorities, which is very important, especially in contemporary music. The other feature, which you may not be able to see immediately, is that the windway is made of metal, and that means that the sound quality is a little bit more like that of the flute than the recorder, so it's a bit more metallic, a fuller sound, a very rich sound, and again I think this really allows the recorder to mix with a greater range of instruments. So I use this, for example, a lot with the organ, with the piano, and in my work with the British Parrot Orchestra, where I might be playing with electric guitars and synthesizers especially. So here's a little extract from the Vivaldi concerto, just so you can hear what it's like. One of the striking characteristics of the Eagle recorder is that, unlike the regular treble recorder, it has a very powerful and loud lower range of the instrument. Most recorders are quite quiet and timid in their lowest 4 or 5 notes, but that's not the case on the Eagle. Here's a little extract of a piece which shows that off very well.
Now, I've listened to excerpts from your CD, Echoes of Arcadia. I must say, wonderful playing and some very, very haunting music. Is this your first CD or have you made others?
Thank you for the opportunity for the shameless plug. Yes, Echoes of Arcadia is my debut CD, and to date my only CD recording, and it's a programme of music for solo recorder, and it spans the Baroque period, so composers like Bach and Telemann, with the 20th and 21st century. And my aim, I suppose if I had an aim at all, was to draw links between the old and the new. The recorder is a very old instrument, yet it has a flourishing and expanding repertoire of contemporary music. And I just wanted to see if there were any links between the recorder's rich heritage and the inspiration that it seems to bring lots of composers from such diverse backgrounds today.
So where did you record the CD?
Well, we didn't go into a recording studio. I decided that I wanted a natural acoustic for the programme. There was no other choice for me. And I was lucky enough to make the acquaintance of a recording engineer who lives in Berkshire, and he recommended a very rural church in the middle of nowhere, it seemed to me. And we spent 4 days there. I remember that it was perishingly cold. We recorded in January and early April, and it was a constant challenge keeping the fingers and the recorders warm, and we sat there with flasks of tea just trying to do anything to keep warm at all. We lost quite a bit of time actually due to noises, so a couple of the days were very sunny and there were some light aircraft flying over, and that doesn't really sound good on a CD. There was a dog barking in a field some distance away, but we couldn't track down the dog. Then a tractor wended its way down a country lane, and obviously we had to wait for that to pass. Other noises we left in, so after one piece called The Ecstatic Shepherd, there just happened to be some wonderful birdsong outside the church, and we left that in because it was rather atmospheric.
Now, James, can our listeners find out more about your CD online?
Yes, absolutely. So if you go to jamesrisdon.co.uk, you'll find a little bit more background on Echoes of Arcadia, and I've also put the liner notes and the CD booklet up there as a PDF, so that anyone using a screen reader can go and read it.
Can you please tell me about the brewery band that I believe you play in? What are the other instruments, and what sort of genre of music do you all play?
Well, the brewery band is really interesting, actually. We are a group of 5 friends who all happen to be professional musicians who really enjoy making music together, but we found some common threads in the music that we play. We have a very